Hello, everyone. When a woman hasn't been intimate in a long time, she does this to get your attention. Most men are quick to label a woman's attention-seeking behavior as neediness. That assumption is usually wrong. And that single misunderstanding, that subtle, almost invisible misinterpretation often costs them the very connection they're hoping to build. Here's what's actually happening. When a woman hasn't experienced real intimacy in a long time, and I'm not just talking about physical closeness, but emotional intimacy, feeling understood, feeling truly seen, she doesn't become louder or more dramatic. She becomes more intentional. Her signals grow quieter on the surface, but more intense underneath. The expression becomes refined. The message becomes layered. If you don't know how to listen beneath the surface, you'll misread her behavior. You might call it clingy, confusing, overly emotional, or too much, but a small percentage of men recognize what's really going on in those moments. And those men don't just capture her attention, they earn her trust. They become the one she gravitates back to. Not because they use tactics or clever lines, but because they understood something deeper that most men never take the time to learn. What I'm about to explain isn't based on trendy dating advice or recycled tips. It's rooted in behavioral psychology, attachment theory, and a realistic look at what happens inside a woman's emotional world when she's been running on empty for too long. And in the middle of this, you'll discover the one thing she's unconsciously testing for and why misunderstanding it quietly destroys so many promising connections before they ever fully begin. Let's be clear about something first. This is not about manipulation. It's not about exploiting vulnerability or playing emotional chess. If that's your goal, this won't help you. And those strategies rarely create anything lasting anyway. This is about understanding real understanding. The kind that allows you to look at a woman's behavior and decode it not as something being done to you, but as something being communicated through her because she doesn't yet feel safe enough to say it directly. Psychologically speaking, when a woman has gone a long time without meaningful emotional or physical intimacy, something shifts internally. Her nervous system becomes more alert. Her attachment system becomes quietly activated. And her behavior around a man she's drawn to becomes more precise, almost like a subtle, unconscious language. Learning that language doesn't make you manipulative. It makes you perceptive. And in relationships, perception is power. By the end of this, you'll understand 3 consistent psychological patterns that tend to show up in this emotional state. You'll understand what they mean, why they happen, and how your response either builds something authentic or quietly collapses it before it has a chance to grow. First, let's look at where most men go wrong. The mistake isn't obvious, it's subtle, and that's why it's so damaging. When a woman who's been emotionally deprived starts behaving differently around a man she feels drawn to, men typically react in one of 2 ways. The first is overcorrection. They interpret her subtle signals as green lights and accelerate more texts, more intensity, more pursuit. They lean into fast. And without realizing it, they apply pressure to a connection that was only just beginning to feel safe. She withdraws, he feels confused. He replays conversations in his head trying to figure out what he said wrong. Usually, it wasn't what he said. It was the speed. He stepped into emotional space that hadn't fully opened yet. The second reaction is the opposite. He sees her testing behavior, the small bids for connection, the subtle proximity, the layered comments, and he assumes she's playing games or being desperate. So he pulls back to protect himself or to appear less invested. What she was actually doing, carefully reaching out to assess whether he's emotionally safe, gets met with distance. She interprets that distance as disinterest and closes the door. Both reactions stem from the same error, responding to how her behavior looks instead of what it means. You're reacting to punctuation while missing the sentence. The deeper issue is that most advice teaches performance. Say this, do that. Create this impression. Performance might spark attention, but it doesn't sustain connection. Because what she's scanning for in this state isn't performance. It's presence. She's asking herself, is he steady? Is he real? Can he handle the full weight of who I am without flinching? Performance answers none of those questions. Presence does. Now let's talk about the 3 psychological triggers that tend to emerge. Trigger 1, the attunement test. She's not looking for attention. She's assessing awareness. When a woman who has been emotionally withdrawn begins offering subtle comments with layers half-jokes, light observations that carry emotional undertones, brief mentions of something personal, she's not doing it randomly, she's watching. Not consciously testing you, but instinctively checking. Does he hear what I'm not fully saying? Most men respond to the surface. They laugh and move on. They acknowledge the literal content but miss the emotional thread underneath, and she takes note, not harshly, just as data. He's present but not perceptive. Most men respond to the surface. They laugh and move on. They acknowledge the literal content but miss the emotional thread underneath, and she takes note, not harshly, just as data. He's present but not perceptive. For a woman who has built emotional walls out of experience, not trauma, just learning this matters. She doesn't open all at once, she offers pieces. If you handle a small piece with care, she offers another. Miss it, and the wall quietly reassembles. Trigger 2, proximity. Her body often moves before her mind fully decides. When she feels drawn to someone after a long period of emotional distance, she may begin managing physical closeness in subtle ways. She positions herself near you. She creates accidental moments of touch. She leans in slightly, not overtly. Just enough to test the space. This isn't manipulation. It's biology. Humans have a comfort radius. When attraction grows, that radius shrinks carefully. For someone who's been emotionally guarded for a long time, allowing someone into that space is significant. Here's where men misstep. They interpret proximity as an invitation to escalate immediately. They collapse the space too quickly, but desire often lives in the space between two people, not in the removal of it. What she's looking for is warmth without urgency, awareness without pressure. She wants to feel that you notice her closeness, but that you're grounded enough not to lunge toward it. When you can hold that balance steady, calm, self-contained, you create something rare, safety and spark at the same time. Many women are used to experiencing one without the other. The man who embodies both stands out naturally. Trigger 3, the emotional risk. This is the most important one. At some point, if she begins feeling something real, she will offer you a moment of vulnerability. It won't be dramatic. It might be a quiet story from her past. A subtle admission of fear, a truth she quickly tries to minimize afterward. That moment is costly for her, and in that moment, she's unconsciously asking one question. Are you safe with the parts of me that are difficult to carry? Most men fail here with good intentions. They try to fix the problem. They offer solutions. They reframe her experience, or they immediately share their own similar story to bond. None of those are inherently wrong, but in that specific moment, they can communicate discomfort with simply holding her vulnerability. What creates real connection is simpler and harder. You don't fix it. You don't redirect it. You don't make it about you. You let it land. You sit with it. And then you respond with recognition, not correction.